Alright, let's look at the second question of our review. We are now looking at the function x squared minus 8x plus 15. We're going to do the same thing that we started with on the first video. We are going to start with finding our axis of symmetry by using negative b over 2a. So I'm going to find my a, my b, and my c. My a for this problem is going to be 1. There is a hidden 1 out front of this x squared. My b is going to be negative 8. My c is going to be the number that's by itself, and that's going to be 15. So my axis of symmetry is going to be negative b, which is a negative 8, all over 2 times a, which is 1. This is the same thing as 8 over 2. This becomes a positive 8 because a negative 8 becomes a positive 8. So remember that a fraction is the same thing as a division problem. It will be 8 divided by 2, which is the same thing as 4. So my axis of symmetry is x equals 4. Finding the axis of symmetry also gives us the x part of my coordinate for the vertex. To find the y portion of my coordinate, I need to plug 4 into my function. So I'm going to plug that in right now. 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 15. Let's break that down. 4 squared is 16. Negative 8 times 4 is negative 32 plus 15. Alright, so 16 minus 32 plus 15 is negative 1. So my vertex is 4, negative 1. Alright, so then we're going to find our zeros. Remember that to find our zeros, we need to factor our function. So I'm going to be looking at factoring x squared minus 8x plus 15. I'm going to use the box method. So remember that the x squared is going to go in the top left box, the 15 is going to go in the bottom right box, and these two boxes need to add to be negative 8x. Now what's special about this side length and this side length is that those two numbers need to multiply to be 15. So some numbers that multiply to be 15 are 1 and 15, 3 and 5. We can't forget that two negative numbers multiply to be a positive number. So negative 1 and negative 15 work, and negative 3 and negative 5 also work. Now we can kind of look ahead and see what we need. We need two things that add to be negative 8. So we would see that negative 3 and negative 5 are going to be what we need for our side lengths. The two things that are going to multiply to give us x squared are x and x, which means my factors for this problem are x minus 3 and x minus 5. Remember that to find the zeros, I have to set my function equal to 0, which is the same thing as setting both of my factors equal to 0 and solving for x. So to solve for x on the first one, I have to add 3. I'm going to get x equals 3. For the next one, I have to add 5. I'm going to get x equals 5. So my zeros for this problem are x equals 3 and x equals 5. Let's go ahead and graph this. I'm going to start with my vertex. My vertex is at 4, negative 1. My zeros are at 3 and 5. Go ahead and draw your parabola. From there, we can find our domain and our range. Remember that domain is x, range is y. Range is going to be different. Domain is usually the same every single time. For this portion of the test, it's going to be the same every single time. It's going to be from negative infinity to positive infinity, which is the same thing as all real numbers. My range, I'm going to need to look for my lowest point, which is going to be at -1, to my highest point, which is going to be infinity. So that answers question number 2 on the review.